This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Be sure to subscribe and help get this video to 2,000 likes. Patrons who join my $10 tier can pick which shows I cover on It's Just a Cartoon. There's a limited number of slots available, so sign up now. Two cat burglars are engaged in a high-speed chase through the middle of nowhere when they decide to pull a Fargo. The two are about to make their getaway when a mysterious figure sends a swarm of locusts to eat them alive. Courage watches the scene unfold as he racks his brain trying to figure out how a cartoon so awesomely violent was allowed to be shown to kids. The next morning, Courage digs up the cryptic artifact and takes it to his domesticating abusers.
Well, judging by the markings and the obvious age of the relic, I'd have to say it would be garbage!
Eustace dismisses the slab as garbage until he discovers it's a $1 million artifact from King Ramses' tomb. Eustace calls the newspaper to take out an ad, but never actually explains what the ad is for.
Nowhere news? I want to put an ad in the paper. Yes, sir. You start running that ad right away.
Just then, Professor Frith arrives to claim the slab while Courage acts out the weirdest game of charades. Instead of explaining how the slab is the legal property of the museum, the professor attempts to bribe the couple with a baller tote bag. Eustace tells him to piss off and lists off all the things he plans to spend the money on.
Fly swatter, spark plugs, shovel handle, razor blade, light bulb for the attic.
I'll give him this. He's a man of simple pleasures who knows how to make a fortune last. That night, the ghost of King Ramses shows up to... Holy fucking Christ! The ghost plans to unleash 3 plagues on the house unless they return the slab. Eustace, having balls of steel, tells the garish ghoul to fuck off. The first plague takes effect as the house gets flooded from the inside. That's not how snorkels work. Courage saves the house by opening the drain in the basement. King Ramses unleashes the second plague by playing the worst song ever on loop.
Crazy bus, riding on a crazy bus, riding up, riding down, driven by a funny clown.
Eustace still refuses to return the slab, so Ramses sends a swarm of locusts to devour their house. The swarm is halfway through demolishing their home when Eustace finally agrees to return the slab. The locusts dissipate, and Eustace instantly calls take backsies. He taunts the demonic king to his face and foolishly demands his $1 million. King Ramses has had enough of this shit and sends the locusts to give Eustace his just desserts. The next day, the slab is returned to King Ramses' tomb, and we see Eustace's soul is now trapped in the slab for eternity. Or at least until the next episode. So remember, kids, don't go around stealing cursed artifacts, no matter how valuable they may be. But if one should stumble into your lap, don't go around bragging about it, as you'll just attract unwanted attention. If an uncanny creature shows up demanding their stuff back, for the love of God, give it back. But if you're too bullheaded to listen to reason, don't rely on your dog to bail you out, as your dumbass will either drown or get devoured by a plague of demon bugs. And if you're the head of Warner Brothers Animation, don't include the scariest cartoon of all time as a bonus feature on the second best Scooby-Doo movie ever made. But no matter how bad this episode scarred you as a child, it's important to remember, it's just a cartoon. Dexter finishes tinkering with some random bullcrap when he hears the ice cream man outside and rushes to get his piggy bank.
That is not money.
Then why did you put them in the piggy bank? Dexter tries shaking down his parents for cash, because even though he can afford a bunch of fancy equipment, he somehow can't pay for a $2 popsicle out of his own pocket. Dexter finally scrounges up enough change just as the ice cream man drives off. Dee Dee shows up to rub salt in the wounds by taunting her little brother with her soggy fudge pop. Just then, all the quarters Dexter's dad made disappear suddenly fall out of the sky, pummeling Dexter to a pulp. Sure, why not? The next day, Dexter plans to catch the ice cream truck by teleporting outside with the money glued to his hands. Do pockets not exist in this world? Dexter tries to cut to the front of the line, because of course he does, when the ice cream man speeds off, abandoning dozens of potential customers. Dexter is now hell-bent on getting his ice cream. Instead of going to the store to buy some, he uses a giant magnet to catch the ice cream truck. He plans to place an order when the ice cream man pulls a Russian nesting doll on him. The following day, Dexter turns his entire street into a laser trap, which seems like it would have cost him way more than if he had just bought his own ice cream truck. His plan nearly works until his dumbass dad sets it off by mistake. Dead. Dexter reaches his breaking point and goes full Captain Ahab on the ice cream man. He harpoons the truck and somehow launches himself onto a mail van instead. Not sure how that happened, But okay, Dexter coerces the mailman into chasing down the ice cream truck, resulting in a high-speed chase that ends with the mailman plummeting off the side of a cliff. Damn it, Dexter, you can't keep replacing your parents and neighbors with clones every time they get killed by one of your batshit schemes. Dexter finally catches the ice cream man and demands to know why he won't serve him. The ice cream man explains how Dexter ruined his life after paying for a $16 ice cream with pennies.
Do you know how long it took me to count those pennies?
5 hours and 33 minutes?
Precisely.
Don't get me wrong, pennies are garbage currency, but that means the dude was taking 12 seconds to count each penny. Turns out, this led him on a downward spiral, as he ended up breaking his tooth, leading him to lose his girlfriend, apartment, and even his car. Dexter apologizes, and the guy finally gives him his ice cream.
$1.50, please.
You got change for 100?
Fuck off, Cheap Pete did it first.
You got change for 100?
So remember, kids, if the ice cream man is in your neighborhood, make sure you have cash on hand so you don't have to shake down your parents for pocket change. If you miss the truck, don't spend all your time coming up with harebrained schemes to track it down when, let's be honest, most of the ice cream they sell isn't good to begin with. And don't get me wrong, I love a good SpongeBob pop as much as the next guy born in the mid-90s, but don't put other people in danger chasing after ice cream you could easily get at the dollar store for less money. And once you finally do get your ice cream, don't pay for it in a super annoying way, as it's best not to piss off the guy who not only handles your food, but also knows where you live. And if you're a food service worker, it's important to remember that petty revenge is fun in small doses, but there's no point in taking out a vendetta against one customer, no matter how much of a psychopath they are. And don't bother wondering why an American family has a child with a terrible French accent, because at the end of the day, it's just a cartoon. The Powerpuff Girls wake up to find their room is flooded with toys. The girls go into a full-out frenzy, which results in them smashing their own window. The girls go to thank the professor, only to find he's dead-ass asleep.
Protons. Quantum physics.
It's not the weirdest sex dream I've heard of. The girls go back to playing when they get a call from the mayor to investigate a robbery, which somehow annoys them even though it's literally their job. The girls fly to a store that just got robbed, which ends up being a toy store. Surprise, surprise, it turns out all the girls' toys were stolen from the store. Instead of telling the cops the truth, the girls decide to keep the toys for themselves. The terrible trio are perplexed by the professor's apparent crime spree and go to confront him in the middle of the night. The girls discover the professor is sleepwalking and apparently unaware of his nighttime thievery. The Power Pains take advantage of the professor's condition and use him as an unwilling patsy to get all the toys they want. The cynical sisters goad their unconscious caregiver into robbing the same store night after night. The truant trio play coy as they hide their ill-gotten gains from their father, the mayor, and the poor toy store owner who they're directly bankrupting. The doughy-eyed dipshits briefly consider doing the right thing before laughing it off. You know, like all superheroes do. One night, the professor is in the middle of robbing the toy store, which somehow still hasn't beefed up its security, when he gets awoken from his trance. The next morning, the girls wake up to find no new toys and are straight up pissed. Instead of playing with the hundreds of toys they already have, the bratty babies decide to tail the professor to make sure he gets it right next time. You know, because they're the good guys. The girls follow the professor to the toy store, only to get ambushed by the mayor and every cop in the city. The professor takes the mayor hostage, resulting in an epic shootout that proves just how awesome this show is.
Yo, hopped out the whip, popped the heater out the club, eat ski masked it up, about to jack these fools lovely.
The professor gets blown to hell, and the girls finally admit it was their fault. But what's this? It turns out the whole thing was just a prank to teach the girls a lesson about lying and stealing. Which seems cute until you realize how many man-hours and tax dollars were wasted on this glorified slap on the wrist. The girls decide to give back the toys, which the mayor eagerly accepts.
I've always wanted a beefy Betty.
TMI, Mr. Mayor. Too much information.
So remember, kids, lying and stealing is wrong, but you know what's worse? Manipulating someone who doesn't have full autonomy of their body to do your dirty work for you. Don't take advantage of other people's medical conditions to get free shit, since you'll probably get tired of playing with all of it after a week. If you're a superhero whose sole job is to protect the city, don't lie to those depending on you to keep them safe when you're the one actively making things worse. And even though petty theft from bigger corporations is largely inconsequential, grand theft from local shops is the quickest way to bankrupt an independently owned business. And while the Powerpuff Girls aren't nearly as bad as DW, it's important to remember that we all have our bad days. And even if you think the 2016 reboot makes this episode look like a masterpiece, it's best not to go off on that tangent, because at the end of the day, it's just a cartoon. Stimpy is watching Horse and Fish, a show he loves so much he's able to recite every line from memory. Ren is fed up with Stimpy's TV habits and calls him out, which somehow feels like a personal attack against me. Later that night, Ren returns home from work to find Stimpy still glued to the TV and yells at him to make dinner. Stimpy turns to a show about a chicken torturing itself to death and ends up setting the whole living room on fire. The fire department shows up, only to get transfixed by a show on firefighters.
That's funny.
Ren is more upset that the firemen are eating his dinner than the fact that the house is on fire. The next day, Ren tries to wean Stimpy off TV by forcing him to play outside. When that doesn't work, Ren results to burying the TV before destroying it completely. This causes Stimpy to have a tantrum worthy of 1,000 DWs. And maybe it's because I didn't grow up with this show, but I'm starting to get why parents didn't like this cartoon. Later that night, Stimpy appears to behave himself until he excuses himself to the bathroom. Ren walks in on Stimpy enjoying himself, only to find he's OD'd. Instead of taking Stimpy to a hospital, Ren decides the best solution is to lock him in the basement until he's fully detoxed. Stimpy is left to wallow in his own misery until he goes through what I can only describe as the most accurate depiction of withdrawal since the movie Brain Damage. A whole year has passed, and Stimpy is finally let out of the basement. Things seem to be back to normal until Ren leaves for work. Okay, this show's starting to grow on me. So remember, kids, cartoons are good in moderation, but you shouldn't dedicate all your time to them, unless you make that your job. It's important to go outside every once in a while, as you can make friends with people who love TV just as much as you do. Don't try to sneak TV behind your friend's back, as they'll just end up destroying the thing you care most about, which will cause you to freak out until you hit rock bottom. And if you or someone you care about has an unhealthy obsession, don't take it upon yourself to make them better when there are countless professionals and medical experts to better take care of the situation. Otherwise, your friend will just replace one addiction for another, sending them on an endless downward spiral. And even though the show's creator is literal human garbage, it's best not to compare the people who like the show to the monster who created it, because at the end of the day, it's just a cartoon. Sagwa is leading a group of kittens back to the palace when her older brother Dongwa pulls a sneak attack.
I am an eagle, and I'm gonna catch one of your chicks!
Why does that voice sound familiar? The kittens continue to play until Dongwa's dumbass runs headfirst into a barrel. Dongwa is now bedridden with a sprained paw, and Sagwa feels absolutely horrible about it.
If I hadn't moved out of the way, you wouldn't have crashed into the barrel. That's true.
Dongwa takes full advantage of his sister's guilt by making her his personal servant. The next morning, Dongwa's paw is fully healed. Instead of telling everyone the truth, Dongwa decides to milk his injury for as long as possible. He tells Sagwa he won't be able to help her with their weekly chores, which is bad enough, but why the hell are cats doing human chores? That afternoon, Sagwa and her bat friend Fufu go to check on Dongwa when they catch him doing Tai Chi. The fuck? Are these super cats? Sagwa realizes her brother has been faking his injury and decides to teach him a lesson. The two tell him about the arrival of a grand ship, and Dongwa stupidly runs to ask his mom if they can go. Dongwa's ruse is exposed, and his mom punishes him by making him do the rest of the chores himself. And again, why are the house pets doing people jobs? Also, there's a subplot about Sensei Topham Hat running his advisor ragged with endless rule decrees and mind-numbing chores. And I mean, I would feel bad for the advisor, but that's literally his job. Still, the magistrate goes out of his way to compliment the advisor on his work ethic and rewards him for his hard work, making him nicer than 90% of the bosses I've ever had, including myself. Dongwa realizes he's been a horrible older brother and apologizes to Sagwa. She helps him finish the chores, and the two go to see the boat together.
It's only a model.
If there's ever anything I can do for you, just name it.
I swear, I've heard that voice before somewhere.
It's not my fault if you made a plane that can't fly.
Wait a goddamn minute.
All this attention is great.
It can't be.
So, how's the paw today?
But that would mean...
Let's see who can tell the scariest story.
But what about...
Do I seem old to you? Are you having cake?
Oh my god. Let's review. Cat DW injured himself and milked his pain and suffering for all it was worth. He guilt-tripped his younger sister Fern into doing all his chores and waiting on him paw and foot. When his leg healed, he pretended to still be hurt to get more attention from his father, Nigel Catburn. When Fern caught on to her brother's scheme, she tricked him into stupidly exposing himself to their mother, Bitsy Baxter. And it was only after his punishment that he realized he was being a horrible sibling and apologized for lying to everyone. F.U. Cat DW. Is there a cartoon you want me to talk about? Patrons who join my $10 tier can pick which shows I cover on It's Just a Cartoon. There's a limited number of slots available, so sign up now.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. If we could learn to work and play and get along with each other. You got to listen to your heart, listen to the beat, listen to the rhythm.